Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a new webinar session of our Apple Insights, the third one in a row. This time we are focusing on WWDC together with my colleague Jordy, Thery, who is Apple Solution Architect at Lab9 Pro. Today we have a great keynote prepared for you guys with all the new stuff that was launched at WWDC last week with the new iOS 26, the macOS, visionOS, etc. And today we're going to have a deep dive as well on the technical parts on the end of the webinar. The webinar today is recorded, so you can rewatch the webinar afterwards on our YouTube channel of Lab9 Pro. We're going to upload this by this noon. Also, the chat is open for everyone. So if you have thoughts about the topics we present today, just give us a shout through the chat and that we can evaluate that during the webinar, because it's a one-on-one conversation together with Jordy today. So Jordy, are you ready for the day?
Before I get started, I want to emphasize that I am doing this keynote on a Mac, which is running the beta, and I have two live demos also with the betas. So if anything goes wrong, we do have backup slides available, but bear with us. So WWDC. For the people that don't know, it's been a couple of years now that Apple pre-records the video, and even in Cupertino, where all the developers gather together, they are in fact watching that recording. Now, this pretty much always have the same scenario. So Apple gets started with a memeable moment, usually with Craig Federini. Then they give some general info about Apple, and then they go on to the new OS releases. Sometimes there's one more thing. Spoiler alert, this year there wasn't, but I do have something else at the end of the webinar. So let's take a look. This year was no different. They got started with the introduction that was Craig racing in a Formula One car on the top of Apple Park, which was, of course, an advertisement for the new F1 movie that's coming to cinemas soon. Then they went over to Apple TV Plus and said that they won the Best Content Award for the fourth year in a row. And I do appreciate that. Apple TV Plus isn't the platform where you think about quantity of content, and there is much more on Netflix or Disney Plus, but the quality of the content that's actually on there is pretty good, right? My favorite is still Ted Lasso. I think that's a good one for many people, but I don't know, Zeno, do you have a favorite?
Yeah, actually I have. I'm not that streaming guy on Netflix and Disney Plus, etc. But I like that Lasso as well. And actually the documentaries that are Apple TV Plus, like about the animals and on Midnight. I don't know how the series is called, but that's brilliant. And actually what you said is the quality of the content that is so good. It's not the quantity, but it's the quality that's so good. And that is true that they achieved that awards for the content.
And then for the people that do have a Vision Pro, they have specific content, immersive content available for Vision Pro. That's definitely worth a watch as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then they continued and they went over to Apple Intelligence, where they gave an overview of the already released features that we spoke about in our previous Apple Insights webinar. They also took the time here to acknowledge that one of the big announcements of last year's WWDC hasn't been released yet, right? So the new Siri is not here yet. They acknowledge that there is a lack of consistency there. It doesn't meet their quality control as of yet, so they postponed release. They haven't set a release date, and I don't think it will be releasing this year, but probably somewhere next year. Two announcements about Apple Intelligence. First and foremost, new language support is coming in this fall, and good for us, Dutch is included in there. So from this fall, we will be able to use Apple Intelligence in Dutch. Maybe more important is the new framework that's available for developers. So now developers will be able to tie into Apple Intelligence, and more specifically the large language models that run locally on device, to do certain content. And they gave a demo with Kahoot. Kahoot is an education-specific application where they took a picture of some papers with text on it and then asked, make a quiz out of this, and they get a quiz that they can immediately use in Kahoot, which was pretty cool. Then the big one, they announced a new language design for all OSs. So they took cues from Vision OS. Everything is becoming more glassy. It's also called liquid glass. So they want to act like you have yeah, a slab of glass in your hands. And that's also a nod to Steve Jobs' envisionment of an iPhone or an iPad
Mhm.
being this pane of glass that you have in your hand. Together with the new redesign, they also announced a new naming convention for all operating systems. So we're no longer talking about iOS 19 or macOS 16, but everything from iOS to tvOS is now OS 26.
Mm.
Next up, before we get started, was this announcement. Going back to the F1 movie that's coming to theaters soon, they released a haptic trailer on the TV app, which uses the Taptic engine in your iPhone to give you a more real-life demo. So the phone will vibrate when the car accelerates or the exhaust pops, for example. All right. Before we go over the OS releases, I do want to emphasize this one again. Please beta test, just like we're doing here today and, well, in the coming months. Feedback is important for Apple. So everyone that has access to a managed Apple account, so that has access to Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager, can leverage Apple Seed for IT. You can get there by navigating to beta.apple.com. You can enroll into the beta programs. You can validate your own critical flows, which is important. For example, for us, one of our most critical apps is FileMaker, and I was happy to see that that works flawlessly in macOS 26. There are testing plans available. So for the new features that Apple tells you how you can test those things. And then, of course, you can provide feedback. And actually, that feedback is being looked at in a different way. So if you enroll into the beta via an organizational account, it will be looked at in a different way as developer betas or public betas. So then we're going to get started with iOS 26. I'm always going to put the device that's compatible at the top here. So iOS 26 is compatible from the iPhone 11 and up. That includes the the iPhone SE2. So from there on, you can use iOS 26. The first bullet will be the same in every slide. So the new UI design, liquid glass, from the lock screen to the springboard and everything in between. Apple gave it this whole glass look. The core apps also got redesigned, right? So the camera app got redesigned. It now is much more simplistic. It hides the advanced camera controls, and you now only see a button for taking a picture or a movie. The Photos app got redesigned again. There was some feedback that people missed the tabs in the Photos app, so that came back. Safari got a redesign, and maybe most importantly, CarPlay got a redesign.
Finally.
So Apple announced CarPlay Ultra, which is the new generation of CarPlay that requires a change by the car manufacturer. And the only car currently available is an Aston Martin, so probably not in our scope. But every car that has CarPlay, be it wired or wireless, will get a redesign as well with iOS 26, which includes widgets for CarPlay, message tab back, and much more.
Yeah, indeed. And I thought I saw it as well on the CarPlay feature that it was available to change air conditioning, etc. The settings of your car. That was also possible. That was on Ultra, but I
That's
saw,
Ultra.
yeah, that's Ultra. But I saw some screenshots, I think,
Maybe,
in the
maybe.
regular one. They are challenging the manufacturers, I think.
Talking about beta testing, I think Peugeot has been deprecated as a whole because CarPlay does not function in my car at the moment. But anyway, I saw some rumors as well that you will now be able to stream or AirPlay video to your CarPlay screen when you are in park. So that was a good addition as well.
Absolutely.
And then the last bullet here is visual intelligence for content. So visual intelligence, we already spoke about it in the previous webinar, is the fact that on an Apple Intelligence enabled iPhone, you can take a picture and then ask Apple Intelligence what you're looking at. For example, if you take a picture of a dog, you can ask what type of dog that is. Now this will also work for content. So if you take a screenshot, your screenshot controls will be at the top, like always, but at the bottom you will now be able to ask Apple Intelligence what you're looking at, or even where you can buy something. And it will also tie into other apps. So they gave a demo during the keynote where they took a look at somebody's dress and then asked Etsy, where can I buy that dress? And the Etsy app opened to dresses like that. If I pull up the bento box, there's some other things on here, some silly things, backgrounds and messages, mixing emojis or an adaptive lock screen. It's not really my cup of tea, but the interesting ones are at the bottom. So there's live translation coming to the all OSs. So in the Phones app, the Messages app, and the FaceTime app, you will now be able to live translate the text or even the speech. So if you're on a phone call, for example, you will hear the other language first, and then it's being translated. And then if you talk back, the person will also first hear you, and then a translation. Um, Also coming is call screening and hold assist. Those are two features that I don't think will be available in Belgium right away. Call screening is the function where if an unknown caller calls you, the phone will pick up for you, ask the respondent, who are you and why are you calling, then provide that to you, and you can decide if you want to pick up or not. Hold assist is then a functionality that if you're put on hold, the phone will wait for you. You don't have to stay on the line, and it will call you back as soon as it's your turn. On the other side, the person will hear an indication that you will be present in a moment. So they are then put on hold, I guess. Um, the bento box was a little bit too small for all the little things that were coming, so they also shared this slide. These are all very little things, and I put a green dot next to a couple ones that I found interesting myself. Custom snooze lengths. So if you snooze your alarm, normally that was a set time. Now you can customize that, which is a nice quality of life improvement. Also lens cleaning hints. So I often take pictures with somewhat a dirty lens, and then you only notice that after a couple of pictures. Now you will get a visual indication that says you need to clean your lens. Available in macOS already, but partial text selection in messages is amazing. That this is only coming now, I guess. But you can now select parts of a text in a text bubble. Password history is coming to the Passwords app. I replaced my Authenticator app and everything with the Passwords app. So all my passwords, my passkeys, and then also my two-factor codes are in there. Now you will also be able to see the history of your passwords in there. Another big one is focus modes on SIM card. So if you have multiple SIMs, you can now tie that to a focus mode entirely and silence the entire SIM if you go out of work mode, for example. And then the last one I found interesting was estimated time to charge. So if you plug in an iPhone, you then can see how long it will take to charge to full. So I'll go over to the next slide, and this is a live demo. So this is my iPhone running the beta. First and foremost, you see the new UI, which is that liquid glass. But then if I open the phone app, for example, you see the new phone app being here. You also see that the bar at the bottom is redesigned, right? And that's maybe more prevalent if I open Safari. You see the navigating bar, and if I then scroll down, it will disappear somewhat, and you can click on it to show it again. If I go to the Cameras app, you then show Xeno for a second. Here we go. You see that it got redesigned. It's more simplistic, so all the advanced camera controls are gone. And if I pull up the Photos app and I open this one, for example, we went to Phantasialand yesterday. You now have the functionality to create that spatial picture straight from the scene. Now, of course, this doesn't translate well on an iPhone. It's more for Vision Pro, but still. And if I go back, you see that tab bar again, so you can navigate between those two. I don't know if there's anything else you want to see in that demo.
Yeah, I saw it in the demo on WWDC as well in the camera app that it was easier to adjust the camera settings as well.
Yeah, so if you open this one, everything is hidden, right? So if I pull this up, for example, I get my camera controls. I can then change the exposure length. I could go back to that screen and change the styles. So that's all hidden in that little menu at the top right. Same for my formats. So I can choose in which format I'm recording or taking pictures. I can make it in the shared library or not. So that's all hidden like there. You do see your zooms in the middle of the screen, though.
Yeah, indeed. That was a thing I liked it as well. I don't like the glass feeling of it, of the transparency on the icons. That's the thing.
It's something that you need to get used to, but you can turn it off. So if I customize my home screen, I can customize it, and then you can put it to default. If it works, here we go. And then you have your regular UI again. All right. That's one live demo that worked. I'm happy. Continuing to watchOS 26, that's compatible from the Series 6 Apple Watch and newer. For reference, we are now at Series 10, so there's quite some older devices getting this as well. Again, new UI design, liquid glass. More fun is the workout buddy. So you now have this energized voice in your ears if you're running, for example, or doing any other workout that will try to motivate you to continue your streak and stuff. For people that went out running with Nike Run Club, that's something similar. You have that functionality in there. The workout app as a whole got redesigned. The smart stack got a little bit smarter, so now it will also suggest you to do certain things. And what I think I'll use the most is the Notes app. The Notes app is coming to Apple Watch, and for both taking notes via recording or for reviewing them. So this is handy for like a webinar like this.
Yep.
If I pull up the bento box, there are a couple of things that come over from iOS, so you will have that call screening and hold assist. Live translation as well. One thing that I didn't mention yet is the wrist flick gesture. So if you get a notification, you can just flick it away by turning your wrist. Moving on to tvOS 26. That's compatible from the Apple TV HD from 2015 and newer, so pretty much every Apple TV that's current. The older one will not get the new UI design because that would take too much resources. The biggest announcement was the extra profile function. So Apple TV already has profiles, but now you will be able to show that on your lock screen and then get straight to recommended movies and series per profile. The Apple TV app got updated, the Apple Music app got updated, and for the people that like to do karaoke, you can now use your phone to actually be the microphone. So that's maybe something for the ladies at marketing. They can use that.
Yeah, probably. I think we have new team building activity.
Great. If I pull up the bento box, they kind of filled it with the new originals coming to Apple TV Plus. That's not a function of tvOS. And also the new poster art, somewhat filler slide. I think the biggest feature here would probably be permanently connecting a speaker, so an AirPlug speaker to the TV, and also an upgrade. I kind of lose myself watching to the screensavers. There are new ones coming from India, but you can now also select which screensaver you want to see. So if you do like Arial as a screensaver, you can now select which places you want to see and which not. Moving on to the big one, macOS 26 Tahoe. So that still gets a name. Compatible from the 2019 Macs and newer, so that includes the latest Intels. New UI design, of course. Again, you can turn it off as well. And also the menu bar is now fully transparent, so that actually makes it look like your screen is just a little bit bigger. Live activities are coming to the Mac. So the live activities that you have on your iPhone will now be visible on your Mac as well. Currently that works, but I noticed that my iPhone mirroring app is always open when that happens, and the actual mirroring does not function in Europe, so I don't know if that will change. If we will get that feature, that will probably be more visible in the newer beta somewhere soon. The Shortcuts app gets a major update, being now able to tie into Apple Intelligence, so you can now use those large language models or even ChatGPT for your shortcuts. And then Spotlight got a major upgrade, which now includes also a clipboard manager. And I have a little demo of the Spotlight in the next, or in a couple of slides. If I pull up the bento box, some more things in here. So now you can customize folders with emojis and colors. You can tint your icons just like on iOS. The Games app is new on all OSs, so that gathers all your games, also your friends and statistics, which is nice. And then some general redesigns, right? Nothing too much major new in here.
I like the feature of the phone.
Yeah.
That was the thing that trigged me because I most of the time I use my AirPods on my Mac, but then you need to do a call, then you pick your phone, but now it's internally in your Mac, so that's a feature I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely, and you call, of course, via your iPhone. There's no SIM card in the Mac yet. Maybe that's a future thing, but then indeed you can now open the phone app and then just do your phone calls like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I move over to the next slide, this is not a live demo, this is a screen recording of the new Spotlight design. So if you open Spotlight, you can still search as before, but now you have extra buttons, for example, for apps, for files. If you click apps, you can just open an app. This replaces the app screen as well, right? So for the
Hmm.
people that have like this 4 or 5 finger swipe on their trackpad or just the bottom in the dock, this replaces that. You can search for files. You have actions that you can take. Very easy. Create a new calendar event, for example. And then the big one, the clipboard manager. Anything that you copy will be maintained in here for 8 hours. So it keeps a log of everything you copy for 8 hours.
Hmm.
So for example, if we close out of this, copy this piece of text, and we go back there, you will see that there is a new entry in that Spotlight. You can see what you copied, when you copied it, and also from which app you copied it.
Yeah.
And that works for text, for video, photo, everything. So you don't
That,
need a third-party app for that
yeah,
anymore.
indeed, that's a wonderful feature.
A big quote from the actual platform State of the Union was this one. This is the final release for Intel Macs. So macOS 27 will be Apple Silicon only.
Yeah.
Two other deprecations, the AFP client, so the AFP file sharing client is deprecated in macOS 26 and will be removed in a future release. So it's probably a smart idea to move over to SMB file sharing there.
Hmm.
And also time machine backups on time capsules, so the old Apple routers, is deprecated in macOS 26 and will be removed in macOS 27. So if you're still using a time capsule somewhere, you're going to need to replace it with a NAS or a dedicated disk of some sort.
Yeah, indeed. But I think now it's time to shift from
Yeah,
Intel to Silicon.
yeah.
It's time.
I mean, the first M1s are getting older,
Yeah.
and you notice that, well, I mean, we're spoiled, right? The speed of the newest chips is incredible, so you start to notice a speed difference there as well. But the Intel Max, if you boot one up now, it just starts spinning up the fans and
Hmm.
it's not doing anything yet. So yes, it's time to replace those if you haven't already. Moving to Vision OS 26. No design changes here because, well, Liquid Glass got his design SKUs from Vision OS. We do get spatial widgets, which
Hmm.
sounds very silly, but are actually very cool. So you can put like a clock or a calendar or a picture somewhere in your room that will stick. So you can put it on the wall and it will stay there.
Hmm.
It's a very nice addition. Also spatial scenes, and then especially in Safari, these are the first steps to the spatial web. If you're scrolling on a web page, you suddenly have a picture that pops out of the web page, just like the pictures do. So that's
Hmm.
really cool to see. Personas got an upgrade. They are now much more accurate. So personas, if you are doing a FaceTime call, for example, the Vision Pro cannot film you. So they put this AI representation of yourself in there. You need to create that via the Vision Pro as well, and it will do eye and hand gestures just as you are doing in real life. And that got much more accurate. And then some welcome upgrades for enterprise. So first and foremost, if you are sharing content, you have multiple people with multiple Vision Pros, you will now be able to work on the same projects. For example, in the apps where you take apart, just saying something, a car, for example,
Hmm.
you can now work on that together. But the other way around as well, you can now share devices. So you can save your hand and eye settings to your iPhone and then share one Vision Pro in a team, which I
Hmm.
think both are pretty good improvements for enterprise. Um, Unfortunately, no news yet. Well, WWDC isn't the place for it anyway, but no news on when or if the Vision Pro is coming to Belgium. As soon as we hear anything about that, of course, you will see that on all our channels.
Hmm.
And then last bullet, control support. I will talk more about this in the bento box. Um, they showed off a pen by Logitech, the Logitech Muse,
Hmm.
where you can use that to annotate in AR or VR, which is pretty cool. But also, PlayStation VR 2 Sense controllers are now supported on the Vision Pro. So that's great for playing games, for example, but also for apps that require a more, uh, well, good capture of your hand movements. There's wide FOV content support for Insta360,
Hmm.
GoPro, and Canon. So now you'll be able to watch those movies in the format they're designed for. Um, look to scroll is new, which is handy. And then I think my favorite is unlock the iPhone with Vision Pro. If you put on the Vision Pro, you can no longer unlock your iPhone because you have these two gigantic screen goggles on your
Mhm.
head. Now it will use Optic ID to unlock your phone, just as you can unlock your Mac with your Apple Watch.
Mhm.
Moving on to iPadOS 26, and that's compatible from the iPad 8th generation and newer. That, of course, gets that new design, liquid glass. But then the big one, I think the biggest update to the iPad in a long while, it now gets real multitasking features. So instead of getting iOS features on a Mac, they now do it the other way around. You get true window management on iPadOS. You get a menu bar, app expose. The Files app got overhauled. It now supports open width and also a detailed view. The preview app comes to the iPad with all features that we know and love from the Mac and much more. If I pull up this bento box, window tiling is in there. You have audio input selection, so you can actually use your iPad to record
Mhm.
podcasts, for example. You can capture local audio and video from conference apps such as Zoom. You have background task support. So if you're doing an export of something, you can now let that run in the background whilst you're doing something else. It's really becoming more and more a computer, right? Apple has been saying that the iPad is a real computer for a while now, but
Mhm.
this update actually makes that true.
Absolutely.
And I will move to the next slide, and I hope it works, which is my iPad. Now, this is not really representative as it's an iPad mini. Oh, no, there it goes. Does it reopen? Nah. Let's. Yes, here we go. So in my dock at the bottom, you can see that I added a folder, which is new, just like on a Mac. You can see your downloads or your documents in my case. You can then open that folder to see the new Files app with the details in there. If I open up a file, I can manage the open with support. So I can say open it with preview. I can also make another app the default, just like on a Mac.
Mhm.
So if I open that on preview, you now get the same functionality as before. You can get info on that device. You can annotate it. You can rotate it just like on a Mac. If I close out of this and I open Safari, for example, you can see the traffic lights at the top left. So if I push that, I can make it full screen. You also see the menu bar at the top here if I take it down. So you now, just as on a Mac, have your tasks as you can do. If you press the Help app, I think that's really useful, and you go to Safari Help. This will open the Tips app in the right
Mhm.
direction to aid with that. So that's a nice addition. And then, of course, if I go back to Safari and I do this, I can resize it, for example, half. I can then open my dock and open my mail, and I'll do the same here. I'm doing it like this because the actual functions of dragging it around is not working all that well. Generally, you could make it smaller here and then move that out of the way, but as you see, you need to press it in a certain way before it actually responds. So I don't know at all. Yes, if I make it work and then I can throw it again and it will
Mhm.
resize. That's a very nice addition to the iPad. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd like to see on this iPad.
Yeah, I think the feature here is the multiple view of windows on an iPad. That's a very big game changer. Actually, there was also something from education that was a thing, and I'm also very happy that it works from the iPad 8 generation
Yep.
and newer. So that's wonderful, and I think that's going to be a big game changer in education. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And this is on an iPad mini, so the screens are looking quite small, but I can
Mhm.
imagine if you do it on a large iPad, this will actually make sense. So you can open multiple
Yeah.
windows on there. So that's working pretty
Yeah,
well.
they worked on productivity, and that is a nice thing because that was also my problem with my iPad. I use it just to read the newspaper, but you can do so much more on the iPad. But I was just single window, and if you have just a split view,
Yep.
that has the not a natural feeling, and now it's more natural feeling also with the menu that we have. We have the links from the Mac. So yeah, for me, it's a Mac with a touchscreen actually.
Yep. And it works very well.
Yeah.
So moving on to my most favorite part of WWDC, that was what's new for IT. And then I can start with what's new in Apple Business Manager and Apple School Manager. A big request for a very long time was API support. So now there is an Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager API that's already live. So you can leverage that right now. It's not that big yet, so you can get your list of devices, you can get device information, and you can assign or unassign a device to a management service. So that's already a good one. I can see this getting larger in the future. Coming this fall, you will also see warranty information inside Apple Business Manager, Apple School Manager. So you can see the purchase date, but also the warranty state for the first year of warranty, and if there is an active Apple Care or Apple Care for Enterprise contract on there. We already got email numbers in Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. That's a mouthful. But you can now also, or from this fall, you will be able to see MAC address information as well. And then the big one, and I will show that in practice in the next slide, but you have built-in support for migrating devices between MDMs. This was something that was very difficult, especially for mobile devices. So now that's built in. You can just assign a device from one MDM to another, and Apple will take care of the rest. So you can set a deadline to when the devices need to move. The users would get an indication that that needs to happen. And Apple will take care of the details, right? So the activation log bypass codes, file vault recovery keys, bootstrap tokens, they take care of all of that. For macOS, there is some cleanup that you need to do manually, unless Apple improves upon that, but I don't think they will. But this is a very good step in the right direction, and that this makes our work as a service provider also much easier. Then some quality of life improvements to managed Apple accounts. You will be able from this fall to limit device sign-in to be only compatible for managed Apple accounts. So if you have devices in your Apple Business Manager, you will be able to enforce that they only can log in on those accounts with a managed Apple account, which is great. If you actually capture a domain, you will be able to get a list of what unmanaged Apple accounts are out there. And having done quite a couple of domain captures, this will be very handy that you get that list so you can do your communication more proactively. And then last but not least, there is an alternative for service discovery for account-driven enrollments. So for the people that use account-driven enrollments, you need to have a service discovery JSON hosted on a web server. Now your MDM will be able to do that for you, so you don't have to set that up, which will be great because not all organizations just have access to their own web server. But the big one is that MDM migration. So this is an iPhone that's enrolled in one MDM. I set the deadline on that for the 12th of June. So I got that message. When I click start enrollment, it does its thing. And then it will ask to reboot. As you can see, this one was enrolled in BlackBerry UEM, and we're moving it to something else. When you click restart, you get a screen that shows you're unenrolling from the current server, re-enrolling in the new server, and then the enrollment is complete. And that's a very straight process, and also this will maintain the data on the device and also its supervision state. So you don't need to wipe the devices anymore, and this will all just work, which is great. This is live already, so you will see those buttons in ABM and ASM, but the devices actually need to have OS 26 in order for it to function. Continuing for enterprise, there were some quality of life upgrades for Platform SSO. The big one is that it is now available during enrollment. So that was my greatest feedback for Apple, that Platform SSO, the pop-ups on your desktop were really not great. So now you will be able to enforce that during enrollment. I will demo this in the next slide. Also, and I think most interesting for example, healthcare, you now have authenticated guest modes. So we all know the guest mode on a Mac, that you can temporarily work on it and it destroys any files on it when you log out. Now you will be able to do that with SSO support. So you log in with your identity provider credentials. In this case, it will be Entra, and a guest user will be created. You will have SSO to all your resources, and as soon as you log out, that data will be destroyed again. Together with this, they are also introducing tap to login. So if you have a device that is set up for authenticated guest mode, you can connect an NFC reader, and then you can just tap your iPhone on that NFC reader. It will log in to that authenticated guest mode. And when you log out again, it will destroy the information. So that's a big one. And I think healthcare is one of the biggest users for that, but maybe also in education, there are many use cases for this. Then declarative device management updates for the Mac. So now you will be able to use DDM to install apps, but specifically to install packages as well. So that's a big one. Safari management, finally. So you'll be able to easily set the homepage, set the bookmarks, just like you can do already on Chrome or Edge. Return to service got a major upgrade. For the people that don't know return to service, that's especially useful in education, I guess. If you wipe an iPad or an iPhone and with return to service, it will preserve the Wi-Fi profile and the enrollment profile. So the device will reboot and roll again into management and go all the way to the Springboard. Now with this change, you will also preserve the apps. So instead of erasing itself and actually downloading the apps again, it will only erase the user data and then keep the apps on the device. So that will decrease the load on your network when you're doing this. So for example, for education, if there's a holiday coming up and they wipe their devices, that's usually in summer, there's an easy way for them to do that. And then some improvements to the Vision Pro. So now we will be able to enroll Vision Pro into management via Apple Configurator for iPhone, just like we do with the iPhones, iPads, and Macs. And there's broader Apple Intelligence feature management for visionOS. We already had that for mobile and Mac. So now that's coming to the Vision Pro as well. And I will quickly demo the platform SSO registration. You will see it fail in this demo as well. So if I'm in my setup assistant, I can just use single sign-on. It's mandatory during the setup assistant. But here in my case, it popped up after the user creation where it's intended to pop up before that. Anyway, so if I authenticate, it will actually do the registration. So you can see me logging in here with my company credentials. This can be passwordless, so that sign-in into Entra in our case will be passwordless. Here we go. And then it registers. But actually, when I then get the next pane, it will revert. And you can see that it asks me to sign in again. But there's a change in the buttons. And if I continue, I will only have to authenticate with my Mac password. So the actual registration worked, but there's some hiccups in the backend. I did contact Apple for this and Microsoft, and it requires a change on the MDM level. So that's why it's not functioning correctly for me. But I think both Microsoft and Jamf are already working on this to get this out as soon as possible. And then, of course, Microsoft will have to do their part for the authenticated guest mode. That's not available as of yet.
Yep.
So then I can move on to questions if there are any.
Yes, there is a question. Yeah, I think it's from Michael. We didn't mention it during the presentation of iOS on iPhone or Mac, but it's the Automix feature in Apple Music. That's also something new. I saw already some examples, and it's quite okay. It's quite good.
So it's a built-in DJ, right? If you do a playlist or if you're playing random songs, it will mix from one song to another. And in my limited testing of that feature, sometimes it works great. Sometimes it's like a drunk DJ on a wedding. So you can, it's mix and match, but it's intended to work very well. Indeed.
Yeah, indeed. So I think we can do some nice things with it. It's the same like the karaoke feature on Apple Music. It's a bit hidden. Not so many people know that it exists, but it's quite fun, and now it's also available on Apple TV, etc. So that's also great. For the moment, we don't have any extra questions. We mentioned in the beginning about the Apple Intelligence and the feature that was launched last year, but it isn't available right now. And that's something typical Apple. It isn't good for them, and now they are still enhancing the software, etc. And we will see what's going to happen. But that's a great thing. They don't want to be the first ones. They want to have the best solution.
Absolutely.
And that's a very important one. There are also quite nice interviews on YouTube. I saw that. With Craig, etc.
They actually gave some interviews about it, which is not typical for Apple to do. But
no, indeed. So we have some extra highlights on that. from my part, I don't have any questions for the moment. I
Okay.
think it's very important for the people that have the possibility to test the betas, test it out. I think the iPad beta is an important one, also on Mac, of course, but for the people that use iPads in education,
Yep.
also for apps that are used in the lessons, please install the beta on one of the iPads you have in the classrooms and test it with your teachers. But then for SMB, it's the Mac, also a very important one. We test already our software like FileMaker, etc. I think the Office application, that would be any problem. But if you have specific ones,
Yeah, and this is very much a case of do as I say, not as I do. Please don't update your production devices
mhm.
to do that. For example, on my phone, I can no longer sign into my banking apps, or it's me for my identity. My CarPlay isn't functioning, so do try and get a test device for that. But do test your workflows, right? For example, for us,
Mhm.
the Mac is most important, but that's the first thing I did. I checked our enrollment flow. That still works. So for the people that are using Jamf, I don't think you need to do any changes there. I was happy to see platform SSO registration working somewhat out of the box,
Mhm.
but also our core critical apps. So FileMaker and the Office apps, for example, but then also our security agent, which is Sentinel-1, that works if you upgrade, but you cannot install it because the installer blocks anything
Mhm.
that's not the current OSs. And then also like content filters in Jamf Protect, that seems to work, but you need to test like all your critical apps before it launches. So if necessary, if at all necessary, you can postpone the update via an MDM. You can actually lock it to up to 90 days if that would be
Mhm.
necessary. Of course, if you file feedback early enough, you have a big chance of issues being resolved, and then you don't have to postpone anything. So.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. And maybe think, okay, it's Vision Pro, of course, it's not available in Belgium, but I think the feature we saw there, it's a future for Apple as well, because we are talking about metaverse, etc. For several years.
Mhm.
Facebook Meta is working on their own platform, but now we see that as well on Vision Pro with the
Yep.
widgets, with the elements that are integrated also in Safari to select some 3D objects to put it in an environment. Yeah, that's metaverse.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, that was a
It,
flu thing, but now it's gonna be real.
it looks very dystopian, but so you could have a blank room and just a couch, and then
Hmm.
put on your Vision Pro or with your spouse, for
Yeah,
example, and then watch a movie whilst you're in a theater, or look at the right and see a clock and then a nice picture that changes, or a video you can view out of a window and see, well, the moon, for example. It's really crazy what you can do there.
yeah, indeed. So looking forward to what's gonna be added an extra and new versions, of course. But I think we can see a path
Yep.
that it walked through.
And then on the Vision Pro, I don't, we shouldn't be saying this, but anyway, if you have a valid business case, we have one available, so you can actually contact us to test that. If you, of course, just want to take a look and watch a couple of videos, I think go to your nearest Apple stores in France, Germany, or the UK, and then they have them on stock.
Hmm.
If you really, really, really want to purchase one right now, and specifically for business use, you can from Vision OS 26 and onwards and roll them into Business Manager manually. So that works. But still, the actual apps you will not be able to use because
No.
the App Store is still blocked in
Yeah,
Belgium.
yeah, indeed, and that's the pity one
Yep.
that you use the American one or the French one. So that's a tough one. But if you want to test the Apple Vision Pro, we have one available here. So if you have a specific case, you can do it. It's mind blowing.
Yep. Absolutely.
It's mind blowing. And if you see the new features right now, it's gonna be great. What's also a thing we mentioned Apple Watch, but I was very fast in the keynotes.
Yep.
But each time if I see Apple Watch, that I'm love to go sporting. I'm not that sporting guy, but
Me
if
either.
you see if you see the videos, the tutorials, etc., and now also with the workout buddy,
Yep.
it's can motivate you to
Absolutely.
sports. So maybe if you want to start running or start cycling or something, it's also a nice thing. It's a private thing, but
Yep.
it's a nice thing.
Okay. No more questions?
No,
No? Okay. Then we do have one more thing that we can already announce.
absolutely.
Um, we are going to, or I am going to the Apple Tech Summit in Cupertino. It's a meetup for Apple Consulting Network's members and then specifically the technical people from there. So we're going to visit Apple Campus. I hope we're also going to visit Apple Park, but they didn't make any promises out of that. And then we have 2 days of technical workshops there with actual Apple engineers. So I do think they will go over all the announced things at WWDC. The agenda that was shared with us pretty much looks like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. And we actually scheduled our next Apple Insights webinar on Thursday, the 21st of August. And I don't know how much I will be able to share about my visit there, but we'll talk about the experience I had there. And if calendars don't change, we'll also have a special guest joining us then.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you have any technical questions that maybe Jordy doesn't know the answer at the moment, he has a channel to discuss that with the members of Apple. So that's, I think, also a very important topic. And yes, I'm jealous that you go to Cupertino, of course, Jordy, but good luck with
I
that.
will bring you a t-shirt.
Yeah, wonderful. Looking forward. The vintage t-shirts. I saw they have new ones.
Very cool. And sweaters as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I have new garderobe for the upcoming events. No, but the webinar is planned the 21st of August, where we're gonna highlight the visit of Jordy. It's a short visit, I think.
3 days.
3 days. So he's got a bit tired, but
yeah,
he's gonna have a bunch of information for you guys about the technical parts and the technical workshops he saw, and we're gonna decide what we can share with you guys and which not, because it's under NDA, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. We are 9 o'clock, 15 before 10. So I think our time is running up. We don't have any extra questions for now. Of course, if you have any questions, please contact us during marketing@lab9pro.be or during our technical service or during our website, etc. The webinar is recorded, so it's going to be published on our YouTube channel of Lab9 Pro by this noon. Share our recording, of course, with colleagues or friends, maybe technical friends, and we hope to see you back on a new webinar about our Apple session, the 21st of August.
Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Wonderful. Have a wonderful day and see you next time.
See you next time.